Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Friday Fundamentals Site Plans. My name is James Henderson. I'll be your instructor for the next 45 to 60 minutes, and our hope over that time is we're going to go in and dive into site plans. Everything from importing site plans to a general overview of what we're looking for you creating your site plans, to taking a look at it inside 3D as we export information from Google Earth. I have in front of you right now, it's a bit of a split screen where we've got on the right hand side the given project that we will be designing towards. It's a actual project I've worked on, and so in this case here you can see a sloping site where we've actually got basically a two-story on the right hand side, and then on the left hand side it's more of a one-story above grade. On the left-hand side, I've got a white sheet of the information that I hope to cover off with you. And so at this stage, I'm just going to run through some of the things that we're going to target today so you've got an idea of where we're going. The general overview that we want to touch upon will involve things like site plan options and defaults. Where are they located? What is the information that you can set up in there? And how to set those defaults up prior to going in and creating a site plan, including if there's information that you want on a permanent basis to be used as a system options versus a drawing option. The benchmark that we're going to be talking about, okay, is what it is and how you set it up within the actual model or building envelope. And then to go along with that, the building position as it's located in the site. You have the ability to go in and edit that and position the building vertically relative to the benchmark and the site plan topo. Once we've covered off some of the general information, we're going to move a little more in depth, which will include inputting or bringing in from an external source an AutoCAD DWG file. In this case, a lot of times the files that are given to you to use from the external source come directly from the surveyor or the county, and in that case it may come in an electronic format, which is like a AutoCAD file. And so I want to show you how you can bring that into SoftPlan. To go along with that, we will talk about inputting a PDF. In some cases, the file was created as a PDF, and so I want to show you not only how you can bring that into SoftPlan for printing purposes, but how you can take it to a next step level, which is convert, whether we're talking about the DWG or the PDF, those lines that make up the two-dimensional drawing on the electronic file you got, and turn it into a three-dimensional site polygon. And then from there, how you could view that in 3D. Of course, sometimes you're simply given a hard copy, and that's where we'll move on to the third section of what we're going to cover today, which is the generation of a site plan when you only have a hard copy to work from. In this case, we will create from an existing building envelope what is called a building outline, and once we have that building outline set up, we will then create the site plan in conjunction with setting up things like north points and the difference between sketching and inputting direct coordinates from that actual hard copy. Okay. Finally, once a site plan has either been brought in via the DWG import, the PDF import, or you have manually input it using our tools, you'll want to be able to extract that in 3D. And when you're extracting it in 3D, this is where we get into importing things like topography, where you can go to Google Earth and you'll be able to import the data directly from Google Earth into SoftPlan and have it extracted into the site plan so that you get topography, and you'll be able to see how the building envelope itself is going to be situated on a sloping lot. And that's where our example that I started with is going to play into that. So with that all said, let's start at this stage then by taking a look at the site plan. Now, in this case here, this is a site plan drawing that has been manually input, okay? And that site plan itself is going to have a series of property lines that run around the external or the outside edge, making up the overall shape of the site. These were manually input from a piece of, or from a plot plan that was printed out, okay? And then once they were input, I was able to then set something like a north point, okay, so that we get everything in the correct orientation. Defaults within SoftPlan fall under the site options. And so in this case here, when you click on the draw menu item and site options from within site mode, you will open up these settings or these options here. Running down the left-hand side of the site options, you will have things like roads and sidewalks and driveways, and this is where you can define the dimensions of that object prior to drawing it within the plan. So therefore, when you go to draw in site work and you select driveway, by default, the object itself will draw in at 10 feet in width. If you wanted that to be by default 20 feet in width, you could enter it here so that going forward inside this drawing, that's how wide the driveway would draw. Of course, you can always edit the polygon or the shape or the object after the fact and change that to 20 feet as well. If you know going into the future you would like that to be your default, then you would simply go in through File and System Options and do the same thing. Okay, and so in through File and System Options, you'll have the same site options, except for the fact that what this does is this is going to impact all future projects, going forward. Moving down inside the drawing options, as we're looking at these settings, you'll also have default depths. Okay, so when we input this site, it's got a property depth of X, and the same thing with things like curbs and the driveway I just talked about. And this is important because if you're going to use SoftList to do any kind of estimating, this will help you to create some volume calculations. We will obviously know what the width is, the length that you draw something, and if you have a depth, we can then do a volume calculation as far as that shape or that object is concerned. Moving to the upper right, you'll see that I'm looking at the line styles now. And under Sightline, we've got the various items for property and easement, etc. And as I click on any one of these, I'll be able to select for a list of predefined line types that are in there. So when you're looking at things like utilities, for example, the cable option by default, you'll see that we're using this option here where you have a line that's broken and it's labeled as cable. From here, I would be able to select the shorter form of CAB or just simply the C only. And so when I draw that line style to represent that utility, okay, it would display using that as my setting. Moving forward from here, I would then be able to go down to where it says elevation benchmark and elevation offset. A benchmark on a topographic map is basically a post or permanent mark that's been established as a known elevation. At that point, all other items on the site plan are going to be measured in relation to that known elevation. So therefore, once we have this set, you'll see everything goes +1 or -1, so to speak, relative to that. This will be input directly from our Google Earth when we get to the time that we're going to use this, or you can manually set this up yourself from the benchmark on the actual drawing. The building position is the dimension with which the building is going to be either positioned up or down relative to the site. So in this case here, we're saying that the lowest point of the building itself as assembled in the floor assembly stack is going to be 3 feet below the actual benchmark or elevation benchmark of the plan itself. So I'm going to select OK at this point and just zoom out of this. Okay, and so that's a little bit of an overview on the site itself. Now, Moving into the next stage here, I'm going to just open up a blank drawing for just a moment. Okay, and so we've got this drawing here, and I'm going to select this north point, and just you'll see that as I do that, okay, as I type in various dimensions here, okay, it's going to rotate my north point automatically for me. All right, now a moment ago that was set to 75 because that's what I needed for this project for the site that we had on there, and that's where we'll eventually return to. But in this case right now, okay, as I set this up with north being by default to the top of the screen, and I'll click OK, it's going to prompt me whether or not I wish to rotate items on the current drawing. And I'll just simply say no for right now. It's a blank drawing, but you'll see in time that as we're dealing with an actual plan, we may want to rotate the site or the building options, etc., according to where the north point is going to be. The first item that we're going to import into SoftPlan is actually going to be an AutoCAD DWG file of an actual site plan that I've used on a project myself. Okay, and so what we're going to do is if we select File from the upper left-hand corner, all right, we're going to scroll down and from the options that are here, okay, I'm just going to select Import and then the DWG DXF one-step wizard. Okay, now there are two different options here. There's the DWG one step, and then there's the wizard here, which will allow you to prompt for converting of certain layers to certain objects within SoftPlan. In my case, I'm just going to use the one step option, and when I do this, it's going to open this up for me and allow me to go into where the file is actually being stored. And so in this case here, I'm going to select this site plan 709 Wilson Wood and select open to bring it in. And when I do that, it gives me the information, okay, of items that what was imported, if any blocks were exported, and the status, of course, being complete. And so at this stage here, we now see that we have an actual site plan as drawn in an external CAD program is now imported into SoftPlan and converted to lines. If I were to right click on any one of these, you'll see that it's just what shape it is, okay, and then according to what the layers may have been within that plan. Okay, so as you zoom in, you'll see that your notes, they can be edited. Okay, so if I were to modify this, that's what that's referring to there. Okay, and then there's the layer that it's going to be stored on should you want to turn layers on or off relative to the site plan that's there. But in essence, this is brought in, the scale is held according to how it was designed within the AutoCAD, so it's a 1-to-1, and then you'll set the scale when you go to print this out. So that's simply bringing in a AutoCAD file to SoftPlan, in which case you could put this on your border, print it out, and you're good to go. Now this next project that we're going to do is going to involve bringing in a PDF, and so it's done in a similar sort of way, okay, as far as the drawing is concerned. And so in this case here, I will come in through File, followed by Review and PDF, and then I'm just going to import the PDF as either an image or shapes. If I do the shapes and the PDF was created in such a way with layering and so on, I'll be able to, at this stage, then convert the lines and so on that this was created with. Okay, and when I do that, I'll be then able to create those lines or shapes and turn them into an actual drawing. So in this case here, I'm going to select this option here, this conduit church option here, which is just a church option or PDF. And when I do that, I see what it's going to look like. And here I get the option of typing in the scale. Okay, so once I have typed in the scale for what it's going to be, I can then position this file on the plan. Now this is obviously fairly large, okay, so it doesn't fit completely within my workspace, which is going to prompt me to have to, increase or change the workspace size. Here I can select File followed by Drawing Options, and as I do that I can then select the workspace limits and change the sizing to whatever it needs to be. I'll use the various zoom options that are available so that I can then move this inside my workspace, and once it's inside the workspace I'll be able to work with it. With the file, input into the drawing now, what I'm going to do is just using the move and rotate block, we'll rotate this file 90 degrees. Couple of items on there I'll maybe just erase just to eliminate a little bit of that clutter, whatever those may be. But here you can see I've got a basic PDF at this stage. If I were to zoom in and edit, you'll see I get a shape polygon line, okay, and so I've just got my polygon edge, which represents the various items on the drawing, and I can now modify and change those. Now in this case, to begin with, I'm going to come in and go into the site options, and then under options and visible items at this point, I can then go ahead and turn on my image, or in this case I'll just simply display everything so that I can actually see where my site is. Okay, this is just simply a two-dimensional drawing. What we want to do now is convert the shapes that make up the PDF to turn it into a three-dimensional site. So in this case here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the Tools option, and under Tools there's a Convert Shape to Sightline option. So when I click this, and it's going to open up what the types of lines that I can change an individual line to. And so in this case here, I just simply want to scroll down until I find Property. When I select the Property option, I'm converting shape to sightline. I'm going to select what I want to convert it to and click OK. And now using the zoom command, I can select the outer outline, if you will, of the property. And so in this case here, you can see I now have a dotted line running all the way around, okay, because I've converted that line, if you will, to the property line. All right. Now the benefit of using the visibilities and controls is I can now turn items on or off. So in this case here, once again going to options and visible items, I can turn off that display everything, and I now have the 4 lines that represent where the property is. As you can see, when I right click and do on this line, okay, only the line highlights, a simple yellow line. So what I need to do is actually convert this from 4 individual lines to 1 polygon. To do that, what I will do is I will simply select the edit option, and down here towards the end there is a form polygon and block form polygons option. So using the form polygon, I can click each of the lines, and you'll see they highlight as I do, and when I've selected all 4, I will right click. Notice that this now is shaded. In this case here, what I'm going to do is clear the model. So I'm just going to remove everything that's in there, and then and I'll say yes to saving these changes, and then what we have been working on right now, which is our SoftPlan import, I'm just going to add that to the model for right now. When I do that and I come back to 3D, notice at this stage I actually have my three-dimensional rectangle that represents my site. Now, there's other things that we're going to want to do as far as the conversion is concerned. So returning back to the SoftPlan import, and again, I'm in site mode for accessing the site tools. I'm going to click Options and Visible Items, and I'll just turn this display everything on again, simply because that will get me my site plan back as far as the PDF is concerned. And so once again, to rehash this, I'm going to go into Tools, Convert Shape to Sightline, and this time the building option is what I want. So I will zoom this up and click. Notice the outline is now turned to more of a light blue, okay? And in this case here now, if I were to select Edit and Form Polygon, I could then run my cursor around and pick each of these lines, and because I've left the visibility on, I'm making sure that I zoom in to get all of the lines that I want, and when they've all been selected, I can right click. This now shades blue. Now, if you were to look at this in 3D right now, that means nothing, okay, other than you have a shaded outline here. But notice what this will do when I right click and edit this building outline. And once I come in here, okay, under the editing menu, I can select this to cut the ground. And when I do that, and I'll fit it to the ground so that I make sure I get the exact heights and so on. But when I do that and I come back into 3D now, it's actually cutting a hole into the ground where my building would be. So this is a lot like the excavation process. Where's the basement going, if you will, or crawl space relative to your site? So using these tools of conversion, you could very quickly take a PDF and create a three-dimensional site. And this is really shows up in this next piece where we've got it's a very odd shaped, if you will, driveway section that's here. So if I were to come into Tools and I were to select the Convert shape to site, and I'm just going to come down to Driveway. And I'll select OK. And I'm going to zoom in and begin to select, what I want to convert to a driveway. And you can see I'm getting all kinds of different shapes, okay, on here, which would be very, very difficult to trace out. Once I've converted, at least it looks like most of these to that, then the next thing that I would do is I would come in through the options and visible items, and this is where I'd probably turn off the PDF for just a moment, because what we see is we've actually got, this is the shape of our driveway. Okay, it looks like we need a line to connect that PDF or that polygon there, and then I want to close it off here. So I may just come in through Draw, Site Work, and Driveway, and I'm just going to draw a single line. And so in this case here, using my F11 snap key, I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to drag it down here and right click once I've clicked the two endpoints. And I'll do the same thing over here. Okay, I'm probably going to erase some of these because I don't need them, okay, and get rid of those. And then in this case here, I may just come in through Draw, Site Work, Driveway, a line, and then just with the snap feature on, I may draw that in. Once these lines have then been modified or converted into driveways at this stage now, you would just be able to use the Edit Block Form Polygons and sketch a box around. At this stage, you can see as I edit this now, okay, we've actually got this odd shape, if you will, driveway the way it is, but it would be able to be modified to, fit to the ground itself, calculating the offsets out, and cut the ground as well. And so as I take a look at this inside 3D, I've now created the building outline, and I've got the layout of the asphalt or driveway on the plan itself. So that's importing a PDF and then converting that to a shape or to a 3D site. And so going forward, that would be the process that you would do. Okay, so that's talking about getting a DWG, getting a PDF in, and of course the next step then comes down to actually importing a site where you're actually just handed a hard copy, and now you need to just input that in. And so over the course of the next 20-25 minutes, that's kind of where we're going to spend some of our time here, the manual input of a site. I'm going to go ahead and remove this from the model right now, and I'm going to go ahead and stack our basement as well as our main floor back into the model. Okay, and so what we've got at this stage with these two drawings, and this is just a simple little plan, okay, whereby we're adding a 4-season room and laundry room on the back of the house. Most of the rest of the house remained untouched. Okay, but because of the sloping lot, it was important to see, what that was going to look like, and that's kind of that site plan that we started with, at the beginning. And so to carry this next part out, what I'd like to do is actually I'm just going to drag onto the screen a window that's showing Google Earth, and this is Google Earth, the desktop download. So you'll need to download the desktop version of this if it's something that you want to accomplish with your projects as well. And what I'm going to do is just type in the address of where we're going to be going with this. And it's there it is in Nashville, and so we'll just do a quick search and let this zoom up for just a second. So it's just and once this, once it pulls this up and you're able to take a look at what we're looking at, so I'll begin to roll the mouse wheel down to take a look. Here you can see there's the house, okay, and just like on my model that I showed you, there's the 2-story on one side, but then you've got 1-story on the other. And in essence, this house is much higher than this one, and the lot kind of slopes down towards this corner down here in the lower right. And so what we're looking to do is the project itself, okay, is simply this existing screen porch, which has some issues and so on with leakage. We're going to be tearing it off and putting a new one on. But in order to show them the full how this would look on their project, I brought in their site information. So with that it's set, and we'll come back and forth to this in just a minute, but I'm going to drag this off to the right, okay, and we're going to come back into our plan. So here's our floor plan, and then I've just basically created a very simplistic basement, and I'm going to change that into site mode. And then from here, inside site mode, I'll be able to go to draw, and I'm going to go to building outline, and I'm going to generate a building outline from here. And so in this case here, I'll just call it Friday Fundamental, okay, site plan. And so when I do that and I click the save button, it's going to generate this building outline for me. This is what I showed you just a couple of minutes ago with the PDF. We converted the outline of where the building was into a polygon called the building outline, which we then set to cut the ground, so that when a site is basically built around this time now, it's going to cut into the ground for the actual excavation, if you will, for this project. Okay, so I'm going to click OK on that, and I'm going to go into File and Drawing Options and just take a look at my workspace limits for a second. I'm actually going to make these even a little bit larger than what we got here. Okay, and so just to give me plenty of room to draw with. Now, when you're looking at this house is actually rotated about 15 degrees. And so my options are twofold. One is I can come in through the edit, if you will, or sorry, the move, and then I could select rotate block, and I could rotate this, by 15 degrees, and that would put it the way it is. But normally we want our house situated square, and then we'll rotate the site about that. So what I'm going to do is come in here to the upper right and change the direction of the north, because relative to the house it's actually not sitting square or facing the top, but instead it's facing off to the right just a little bit, something like so. When I click OK, it's going to ask me whether I wish to rotate the items currently on the drawing. If I say yes, it's going to rotate the house. So I'm going to hit the undo key, and once again I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I will say no, and when I do that my house will, building outline will remain square, which will make it easier when I go to stack my plans onto the site because they'll also be sitting all relatively square throughout. The reference circle that's here is the same reference circle that is here and on the main floor plan, so that everything will align accordingly. Okay, and so now with the north point faced towards the upper right, what I'm about to do then is just simply go in, and using draw sight line property, I can either enter or sketch the coordinates in for the site. Typically when you're sketching the site in, what you're really looking to do is you're just trying to create a three-dimensional yard for the house to sit on. You're not as concerned about setbacks or how much area is between the edge of the house and the edge of the property. You're just trying to convey a horizon, if you will, but one that gives you a little more control than the auto horizon. When you're entering the coordinates, you're more concerned with literally getting the site accurate. And when you click on this to begin drawing it, this is where your north point now comes into play. So in my case here, once I have set my north point, have my building outline set, I can position my cursor and click, and the add sightline option is going to come up. Now in this case here, I can begin to set information such as what my sightline is going to look like and the direction that it's going to go. So in here I'm just simply typing in what the degrees, minutes, and seconds are, and then even what the line length is going to be. And as I do this, it's going to automatically sketch that in for me. Now once I've done this and the shadow line is set and I'm happy that that's what I want, I will click the next button. This line is drawn showing the dotted line and even what the dimensions are, etc. And the end point of this line is used as the start point for the next. So now moving on to the next line, it's again running in the north direction, but now we're going to type in a different degrees, minutes, and seconds, and even in this case it's running northwest, and then what the line length is going to be. Okay, so 185.933 feet enter. And the enter is important because that basically tells you that, to add the shadow line on there so you can see what the direction is going. Okay, and this is a case if you were to change this, you can see obviously you're going in you missed something, so the shadow gives you kind of that heads up. Once you have that, you can click next, and that moves you into drawing the next line. So in this case, I'm going to run south 71, okay, hit the tab key, and 43, tab 50, tab west, tab through to the line length, and here we can enter in 63.886 feet, enter. Okay, the line is there. I can hit next. And so I'm just going to continue to add a couple of more lines that are going to be in here, all right, as I work around this. And so south, and again, you would be able to see, if you were sitting here, I've got this sheet in front of me, and I'm just really looking at it for, directions and line lengths and so on. To get this, fully input. The foot sign is important. It drops it in. I see it. I click next. And so I'm down to just a couple of more lines to put in here. So we're going to go south. And we want a degrees, minutes, seconds of 88, 28, 19, east. That's correct. And then the line length of 139.266 feet, enter, and it drops it in. Click next, and the final line for inputting this site in is we're going to run south, and we want this at 90.00 east, and it's going to run a line length of 128.724 feet, enter. Now this is not unusual. I'm going to click next and click OK. And by this I mean there's a small gap there. So when I was inputting this, when the surveyor did his job, whatever it is, there's something that's not quite forming that corner here. And so because of that, this is not a polygon. When I do an edit and I click, okay, this doesn't have any kind of three-dimensional properties. It's just a 5 or 6 line object here. This is where my tools and fillet command will come in to play. And so when I click on the endpoint of these two lines, it will extend these two lines to find one another. And notice this is now shaded because it's an actual three-dimensional property. If I were to go into the 3D shaded to take a look at this, okay, and so we are currently working with the Friday Fundamental site. I'm going to add that to the model, and I'm also going to move it all the way to the bottom, because this is where you want the site actually being set. And as you do that, okay, we will zoom the camera to take a look, and we now have our house, okay, relative to the site. Now the positioning is obviously very important, and this is going to be a case of where I'm going to come in and I'm going to select the dimension and dimension point. I'm going to position my cursor on this corner here, and as I draw this and with my F11 snap feature on, you can see it's going to snap it 90 degrees to the sightline property. Okay, and so as I do that, I can then edit this dimension where I want this to be, okay, and move the building outline accordingly. I'm okay with moving the building outline because what I'll do is I'll basically reposition the reference circle on the outside of this site, the outside of this building outline, and that's what will be used to restack the model, okay, because everything finds that outside corner using the reference circle. Now what we have here is a flat site. Okay, that's what we're looking at right now. So what we have done so far is we have set up the north point, we've entered in the coordinates for this, and the next step, or the next thing that we need to actually do, is bring that topography in from Google Earth. So I'm going to bring this on screen for just a second. This is what we're looking at right here, okay, and we've got a little option there called Add Place Mark. Now, the edge of the property basically runs along here, and so I need to basically call out where that is, and then once I have that latitude and longitude, I can set up the same thing within SoftPlan on the site plan, which will be used as our import process for bringing the topography in. So when you click on this, you'll see that it drops a place mark on there, and in essence you'll get this secondary child menu that pops up, okay, called Untitled Place Mark. Alright, right now, and I can name that anything I want, but what I can do is drag this to where I want this to be placed. Okay, now is the latitude and longitude are going to be updated, and that's the information I'm going to be used. Now, again, I can label this anything I want as far as that goes. For today, it's just my Friday fundamental class. Okay, but that's what the name of this benchmark is going to be. And so now, as I'm looking at this, on the actual drawing, okay, I can right click at any time and click the properties and pull that out. So this latitude and this longitude is the information I'm looking for right now. I'm going to be dragging this off screen for just a second. Okay, at this point, what I'm going to do is inside the site drawing, I'm going to select Options, Visible Items, and under the site, I'm interested in turning on what's called the Geolocation Point. And so when I do that, you're going to see down here, I've got this Geolocation Point right there, which is calling out, kind of what I want to line up with the Friday Fundamental place mark from Google Earth. So using the Move option, I'm going to select this, and I'm going to drag it down here to the lower right corner and set it there. So this is now aligning with that option over there. Okay, as I look at this inside 3D, this is my site. I can go to Options and Sun Options, and there's a geolocation point that I'm going to key in the same dimensions in here that I've earmarked in Google Earth. Okay. Now this of course could also be done from within the project option, so you've got two different places you can do this. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter this information here over here. Okay, it's close, but it's not exactly perfect. So I'm just dragging this off the screen so it doesn't disappear behind my SoftPlan screen. But I'm going to put in the north dimension of 36. I'm going to tab down, and this is at 4, and then at 56.32. And then I'll tab over here, and we'll go 86, and I'll tab to 49, and then 17.58, and again, it's west. Okay, and so that sets that geo point up for us at this point. If I come back into our site plan, remember, north point set, input all of the topography, make sure, or all of the outlines of the property lines, and then make sure that it forms a solid polygon. Set up the place mark inside the Google Earth, and finally set up the geo point so that it's in the same point over here. Now what you can do is right click, and from within SoftPlan here in the site mode, you can import the Google Maps site data. And when I do this, it's going to import this information onto the drawing. When I do that and I come back into the 3D shaded, you can see at this stage, here is my site. Okay, now the house is floating. That is a case of needing to go into the site plan, into draw, and into the site options. And so inside here with the benchmark set, under the building position, we can now input what this dimension needs to be, up or down, and what that's going to do is actually take the building envelope, if you will, the basement plan and the main floor plan, and offset that relative to the site itself. And so as we look at it inside the 3D shaded, we can now begin to see how this slopes with the site around the building itself. And of course, I haven't put the front porch or anything in here. Now, in the rear, there's actually some differences in the grade than is actually being shown here as far as the information. So if I need to override any kind of the defaults that are there, because obviously the site comes up to the bottom of those stairs and so on. There's a little bit of cut that's gone on here and even a little bit of fill and so on around this. Then I can override or add my own grade lines in there. Selecting Draw and Grade, I'll select the grade option in the spline, and all I'm going to do at this stage is just raise the elevation in this area, okay, to be more representative of what is there. And so we'll key in, I think, around 713 feet. And so as I take a look at this now inside the 3D shaded, we can see how that's begun to slope the grade. Now obviously it gets lowered here, so there's kind of a cut pattern that goes on there as well. And so again, this is just a matter of, as I say, modifying or changing the grade, okay, a little bit to suit. And so I'm just kind of coming in, selecting the spline option here, and I will just run this along something like so, and then I'm just going to key this in at, let's say, 702 for the actual setting there. And as I pop into 3D, we can begin to see it lower the grade while raising the grade there, and that gets us more of the sloping option that was, actually happening. So that's how you can change and modify, various grades. And as you change those, so I put a 702 in here, I'm going to change that maybe to 703 just to raise it a little bit and take a look at it, and you can see now that raises it just ever so slightly. So we, ultimately there's a sidewalk that runs down here to a driveway, and we would get that filled in and so on. Okay, so that's inputting the various elevations, if you will, by importing them from Google Earth. So it's pretty straightforward. Now the next thing that you can do on something like this is you may come in through Draw and Grade and want to just generate a visual of what the grade lines are, similar to what I sketched in here for these two. And so I would just simply click the Generate Grade outline. I can tell it what the increment's going to be, and then I'll just simply click OK. And I'll say yes to adding the grade line in there. And so what you will see at this stage now is I get all of the grade lines, being displayed across the drawing itself. Okay, so I can see these, and then I could even, modify or change those if I wanted to, override a specific default and so on. Lastly, as far as the grade or the site plan is concerned, and just to wrap this up, is there is a specific symbol in here. Okay, I'm going to do a search for it, and it's actually the miscellaneous north arrow. And when you click on this to add this symbol to the drawing, it's kind of a unique symbol because what it does is it automatically mimics or takes the direction of the north and represents that on the drawing. So as you are drawing your site plans and so on, you can at that stage click and have that placed on the drawing and know that it will automatically adhere to what the north point is. And if this north point were changed, okay, it's going to follow suit on the actual drawing. I hope that you got lots out of today. That's, we hit a lot of things very, very quickly, and I know that there was a lot of information. We did record this class, so we will be posting this along with all of the other Friday Fundamental classes that have been covered this summer, from bathroom and kitchen designs to this site plan outline.